one of the things that got to Jeff Flake was the lady in the elevator. I don't know how many of you seen that encounter that Jeff Flake, and the woman wouldn't leave Flake alone. I guess she felt compelled to yell at him face-to-face for several minutes. She did that. A CNN camera. I mean, all this is probably a game. I mean, Rev, I hate to be that cynical.
No, you don't think it was a coincidence the cameras were there?
I mean, the lady was allowed to go somewhere that they're not normally allowed to go.
Is this the senator's private elevator?
And it's happened that a CNN camera, not a Fox News camera, not a Wall Street Journal reporter, but it just happened that a CNN camera, they broadcast the event live. It went viral. The lady, and I'm quoting here, the transcript, I was sexually assaulted. Nobody believed me. I didn't tell anyone. You're telling all women that they don't matter. I mean, imagine, just think of the lunacy of that statement. You're telling all women they don't matter. Nobody says that. No idiot says that, to tell all women they don't matter. That's what you're telling all these women. That's what you're telling me right now. Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're telling me that my salt doesn't matter. Well, that wouldn't have gone over real well with me. Look at me when I'm talking to you. I said, ma'am, who are you talking to? With all due respect, I mean, who do you think you are? I mean, are you the moral arbiter in all of Washington all of a sudden? No, I'm going to tell you who she is. I'll tell you exactly who she is. Her name is Anna Maria Archila. She was joined by Maggie Gallagher. These were the two women who confronted Jeff Flake inside the elevator, of which she's not supposed to be there, to express, as the New York Times put it, a rising anger among many who feel that too often women's voices are silenced and their pain ignored. Tell you who she is. She is executive director for the Center for Popular Democracy. That sounds harmless. Who's not for popular democracy?
Sure.
So surely the lady that heads up and is executive director of the Center for Popular Democracy, well, she spent the previous 2 weeks in Washington engaged in daily protest against Brett Kavanaugh. Gallagher is a 23-year-old activist with the same group. Now, the Center for Popular Democracy is a left-wing propaganda arm of the George Soros Open Society Foundation. That's where they get their money. That's where they get their bread buttered. He was the largest donor to the Center for Popular Democracy 2 years ago, and the third largest donor this past year. Now, she has another role. Archila has another role beyond her duties as co-executive director of the, hold on, let me make sure I'm reading this right, because this is in the Wall Street Journal, of the center. She is also a member of the National Committee of the Working Families Party. So who wouldn't want to be in the Working Families Party? I mean, that's harmless. Well, it's not. It's a fringe-based New York. It's New York-based. It's a fringe political party that gets in the middle of things like this. I mean, there's a big articulation. It was founded in 1998, and here's where I think it really gets interesting. Guess where the Working Families Party derived from? It is the rest and residue of Acorn. Acorn shuts down because they had some pretty significant issues with their funding and financing and securing of government grants. Well, when Acorn closed down, it became reinstituted as the Working Families Party. Now, Acorn is disbanded. We would argue it's a kind of a disgraced group of community organizers. Guess who served as Acorn's lawyer and who helped in transitioning from Acorn to the Working Families Party? None other than former President Barack Obama. In the 1990s, he served as their legal counsel and helped transition from Acorn to the Working Families Party.
Of course he was.
So, I mean, it's all about...
Connect those dots.
It's all about this innocent lady and this terrible thing she had done to her. Here's the travesty. Here's the sadness of what is happening. The Democrats will throw this lady in the trash can the second she becomes of no use. They don't give a rat's rear end about Mrs. Ford, Dr. Ford, once they consider her to be invaluable. She'll be another skeleton on the pile of political skeletons that both parties have used and abused to to their advantage. That's the travesty here. I think you've got a lady that has some issues. Are they as a result of sexual abuse? I have no idea. But I think you've got a lady who had some traumatic event happen to her in her life. And you had an influence who convinced her, maybe she convinced herself, that it was Brett Kavanaugh. Now, could it have been? Absolutely it could have been. That there is no doubt in this world that it could have been Brett Kavanaugh. It is not impossible to believe that Brett Kavanaugh could have been a sexual predator at that time and done this to her. He's 17, she's 15. But there's no evidence to show that. And once the Democrats come to a conclusion that this lady can't be helpful any longer, she's toast. Her story doesn't matter. Her life doesn't matter. I mean, there'll be a few people who got to know her a little bit. Some of these assistants on campaign staff that got to know her a little bit, and they'll send a text, every now and then. But Feinstein will go on to the next whatever. Schumer will go on to the next whatever. Cory Booker will say, how can I situate the Ford story to help me be president of the United States? Kamala Harris will say, how can I take the information and what happened to more energize the fringe base that I think will vote for me in the Democrat primary in November of June, or well, it'll be in the year of 2020. It'll be leading up to the November election of 2020. That's the travesty here. There are a lot of misgivings. There are a lot of problems. There are a lot of nuances that we wish weren't the case. But there is a couple of human beings whose lives are being completely and totally obliterated. And I would argue very few people in Washington care. The Republicans want a conservative on the court. The Democrats don't. And you've seen up close and personal that nobody cares what has to be done to get it done or to stop it from being done. I got a buddy, we're texting yesterday. He is probably, as much as any friend I've got in this world, somebody who wants government to work. He believes that government in America can be aspirational. I tend to disagree now. I'm probably more cynical than he is. He talks about defeating Hitler in Nazi Germany. He talks about putting a man on the moon. He talks about, the way the American experience has changed the world in an incredibly profound way. And government has been at the center of that. I mean, it's been the people of the U.S., but government's kind of been the entity or the enterprise we've utilized to create good all over the world. I mean, the world would look a whole lot different, Reb, if it weren't for America standing up to Nazi Germany. You know that. I know that. Yeah. The world would look a lot different had the American government not done certain things in certain times. Well, he holds on to that. And I think he's the most sincere soul in the world about that. I told him yesterday. I said, you, as much as anybody I know, believe in the goodness of government. He's sincere, and he's distraught. You know what else he believes? He believes Kavanaugh ought to be on the U.S. Supreme Court. And he ain't one of us. I don't know that he's one of them, but he ain't one of us. But he believes that for the goodness of the country and the structure of government and the adherence to rule of law and the way our system is designed to work, he'd probably rather find somebody other than Kavanaugh. But once again, his appreciation and affinity for government and the way he wants government to work, Kavanaugh should be allowed to sit on the U.S. Supreme Court. That's a dwindling number of people, Reb. That's an incredibly smaller universe today than it was. There are a lot of us, myself included, that wonder whether America's seen its better day. I can't help but question that. I can't help but say, nothing's forever. I mean, we've got this thing called American arrogance. I mean, what happened to the Roman Empire? What happened to the French Empire? I mean, we've had great societies and experiences and experiments all over the world. They don't last forever. We've had 30 some odd years of change in the world. And in some way, shape, or form, a responsible government has articulated or organized or orchestrated some of that. Not so much as we speak. So when you hear stories about ladies standing in doors of elevators and you believe those are happenstance. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that you're a gullible public. but you're a gullible public. And if you believe that a CNN camera just happened to be, on standby because they just happened to be there, take it from somebody who has lived some of that. Not at that level. By any stretch of the imagination have I ever been in a political dynamic as this is. But there are a lot of personalities, there are a lot of figures, and I believe the great travesty in this narrative is two human beings whose lives are being completely and totally obliterated, and their reputations are being obliterated.
And they want you to believe that those sort of activities, the people in the elevator, they're organic. But they're not.
There's nothing organic in Washington. Everything forgive my cynicism, everything in Washington is for a reason and a purpose. And the second Dr. Ford is not helpful to the Democrats, they'll throw her in the trash. And that's a travesty. That's an absolute, total travesty. It's an absolute travesty what they're doing to Brett Kavanaugh. And she's wrong to have participated, in my humble opinion, in this political theater. But the second she is not helpful to Dianne Feinstein will move on. And that's just the realities of the way American politics works today.